Welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast, where we're addressing the challenges and the opportunities of midlife from a uniquely Catholic perspective. Join us each week as we spark a midlife renewal and create a firm foundation for the next wonderful, exciting, awesome season of life.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast. I'm Curtis. I'm here with my fellow host, Karen.
Hi, everyone.
And it's a delight to be here with you today. We had a listener reach out to us and tell us that in our happiness season, when we were talking about the 3 levels of life, you guys remember that, right? The pleasant life, the good life, and the meaningful life. Those are Seligman's 3 levels. And she said she visualizes that as kind of a pie chart where you have a certain proportion of each of those to make up your happy life or your life of eudaimonia. Why can't I say it today?
Eudaimonia?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So however you pronounce it, we're talking about that it's beyond just the happiness and the pleasure and the hedonics. It's that vision of a complete life that God has in mind for us.
Including purpose and meaning.
Purpose and meaning, that's what we're talking about. Here's a quote from Christifideles Laici, John Paul II's apostolic exhortation. Indeed, as a person with a truly unique life story, each is called by name to make a special contribution to the coming of the kingdom of God. And I love that. That is, God is calling each of us by name to bring our unique contribution forward. And it's surprising to me how important values are to making that contribution and creating a sense of purpose.
They're so totally connected, both to purpose and to making a contribution. And I really think many of us don't appreciate the role that values plays in our lives. So maybe I should just say a couple things about values. Okay, awesome. So your values they're so deep. They're so deep within you. They are deep within your unconscious. They are motivating you. They are driving you. They are why you make the choices and decisions you make, even if you don't realize it. And it's part of who you are, and it's part of your special contribution to bring your values to the world. And when we are living into our values, honoring our values, that's part of what contributes to having a deep sense of purpose in life. So values are connected in a number of different ways with what we're talking about here.
We love living out our values.
We do.
When we're doing an activity and it lines up with our values, we're like, this is great. Values like fun, if that's one of my values, and the activity, maybe it's a teamwork activity and everybody's having fun. I'm in the zone. I'm having a great time.
Totally. You're in the flow. You're in the flow.
And if it's dumb and boring, then I'm miserable because my values are being crossed.
Yes. Yes. So we can create purpose in many different scenarios. There's this sweet spot when we're living into and honoring our own individual personal values that helps to create such a sense of purpose. You're probably aware that over 95% of your life is lived at the unconscious level. You've got a lot going on unconsciously.
Can I choose the 95% I live unconsciously? That would be my preference.
Well, you have to sort of drag it into the conscious level, and then you can make your choices. And maybe you can shove it back down to the unconscious and not worry about it.
You got my hopes up there for a minute.
It's really important to understand what's going on the unconscious level. And values, that's where they operate and where they motivate us. So really, in a way, Curtis, what you're saying is exactly what we want, is we want to pull up unconscious and have a sense of understanding what's going on there so that we can choose how we want all that to work on our behalf.
It's so true. It's so true that pulling up the values from the unconscious is helpful in so many ways. I'm thinking of a situation where I'm doing an activity, I'm making a choice, and I'm having a hard time, and I keep vacillating. I'm going back and forth and back and forth. Or I start to do it, and then I feel like, oh no, this isn't good. This isn't right. I shouldn't do that. What's happening sometimes is I have two important values that are conflicting. So when I do the activity, they're in conflict.
Right.
And
right.
it's really hard for me to enjoy it, to go forward with energy, to make great decisions. And that's a situation where if I can become aware of the values that are competing, I can choose one.
Right. You could choose what you're going to honor in that specific situation. And then you can live into that choice. Because part of what's going on in that conflict is you're telling yourself internally, well, I should do this. No, really, I should be doing this. Or no, I should be doing this other thing. And you've got a lot of those values operating, and you haven't really chosen consciously why you're doing what you're doing and the purpose for which you're doing what you're doing, so that you can really step into that and say yes to what you're choosing.
I'm thinking of situations in relationships where there's some activity that's interfering with my productivity or my budget or whatever. Then I choose to lean on the relationship value at that time. And then my conflict starts to resolve and I can make the best choice in that situation.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And I'm thinking also of a guy I know who he really was extremely reliable, consistent. It was having consistency in his job was really important to him. And when he didn't work, he didn't get paid. But he also had this value of enjoyment and rest and finding contentment and peace. And it was really hard for him this one time. He had planned a vacation and he decided to go, but he kept having this inner conflict about leaving his work and not being consistent for his clients and losing the income. But once he realized, okay, I've got a couple different values here, and I'm choosing to honor my value for rest and peace and contentment and go on this vacation. And this is an appropriate value for right now. And I can really set the other aside. Otherwise, he would have spent the whole vacation feeling, as you said, that inner conflict and not getting either the consistency of his job or what he needed from the vacation.
So those are a couple examples of how values can be in conflict, how pulling your values up from your unconscious mind up to your fully conscious mind and looking at them and choosing them can really serve you. So those are some great tips for working with values.
Well, I really feel very strongly about this, and I just want to say it clearly. If you don't know your values, it doesn't mean they're not driving your choices. They're always driving your choices. If you're getting to be 50 and you can't say what your values are and how you honor them and when you choose from them, then you have some work to do. You have some real work to do, because that means that some things are going on unconsciously that you probably would like to change if you really understood what was going on.
Well, that's very strong, Karen.
Yeah, it's definitely strong.
So if you're 50, would you say 40? How old am I?
Well, I would probably say 20, but we're not talking to 20-year-olds. We're talking to midlifers.
Oh, come on. 20s don't count. Those are just experimental years. Okay, that's not true. That's not true. But what this brought up for me is we We can see problems more easily in other people sometimes. And we might be able to think of somebody that's in our life who is difficult to work with in some situations. So for instance, they're not getting out of the house to do things, or they're out of the house all the time, or whatever it is. And you can tell that, hey, that person over there, their values are not serving them. And they don't even realize it.
Right.
Do you think most people can relate to that?
Yeah, I think so. Well, here's the thing about values. Values are beautiful. I mean, we're talking about really beautiful, chunked up concepts like connection, humor, engagement, kindness, fun, growth, understanding, wisdom, love. I mean, values are beautiful. And part of what's so beautiful about knowing them is you actually start to appreciate who you are because you've got these beautiful values. And so I see fundamentally the first thing about starting to identify your values is it makes you really appreciate yourself. And when I see values of somebody else's, I'm in awe. I think they're amazing to look at someone's list of values. I think part of what you're saying is it can be possible that we don't have facility at knowing how to use our values to make the choices that we want to make. And so we can end up undermining ourselves or not serving us. Is that what you're talking about?
One of the points I was trying to make is that values are huge unconscious drivers.
Yes.
And they drive a lot of our unconscious behavior. And we can find ourselves doing things without realizing it's our values that are driving us.
Yes. I completely agree with that. I completely agree. And here's one reason it's really important to make those unconscious drivers conscious, is that the behavior you're doing unconsciously might be honoring your value, but it might not be the best way to honor that value. Or if you laid it all out, you may actually choose to honor that value in some other way that intersects with other areas of your life. So there's a lot that can be said for growing and learning how to best live into our values.
For instance, if beauty is a value,
right,
then if it's a conscious value,
right,
you would bring it into many different areas of your life.
Yes.
At home, on your vacations, it would show up in a lot of different ways. If it's an unconscious value, it would come out sideways,
right,
in funny ways. You'd find yourself buying things,
sure,
it's your unconscious mind trying to get you to bring a little beauty into your environment.
Exactly. And how much more powerful that can be when you're doing it consciously.
And how much peace does that bring?
A lot.
As you start to identify that and embrace it as the good in you.
Yes.
And as you start to see your own values and love yourself.
Exactly.
We're both, I think, thinking about some of the values work we've done with clients.
And values are so powerful. I just because you said that, Curtis, I'm thinking of one beautiful gal we worked with, and she had this value of fun. And it was evident and it was powerful. I mean, you could not have a conversation with this woman without your whole spirit being lighter when you left the conversation, because she had mastered what it meant to have this value and how to use it powerfully to inspire and upbuild and encourage other people.
Yes, she leaned into it.
Intentionally. She knew she had it. She worked with it. She claimed it.
Yep.
And everybody loved to be around this person because this was a beautiful, powerful value, and it made its way into everybody's heart as we came into contact with her.
Karen put her photo on her vision board.
I did, because I wanted to be like her. I wanted to be like her. And this was a value I wanted to have more of in my life. It's probably not the one that comes naturally to me. And also, I'm so impressed with its beauty and power.
Values that you have are very beautiful. There's no negativity in the value. As your values become more clear to you, you can enter more fully into making your unique contribution, living your strengths, living your vocation with joy and strength.
Yes, yes. And I do get that question a lot, actually, like, does each value have a positive and a negative side? And the answer to that is no. And we also, we all have baggage. We all have negative emotions. We have past experiences. We can be motivated to move away from things instead of move towards the things that we want. And all of that can come into play as we're living our values. So no value is negative. And at the same time, it's really important to release all the kinds of things that can be hanging on to the values as we're trying to live into them more. So
values have no negativity, but we have baggage.
Yeah. That's basically what I just said, I guess.
Yeah, that's how you explained it to me.
Yeah, okay.
So what's an example?
Oh, okay. So I'll tell you about a gal who had a value of independence and self-sufficiency. And there's nothing wrong with that value. There's a lot of power in that. And in choosing to be, just to make a difference from her own sense of self, it was beautiful. And as we talked, it became clear that in some ways, there was some experiences from early in her life that were affecting this value for her. She had seen her mom be very, very dependent on other people, and she saw what that did to her mom. So at some point she decided, I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to be dependent. And that's a move away from aspect to her value.
Never be dependent.
Yeah, I'm not going to be dependent versus I'm going to be the kind of person who stands on my own 2 feet and makes things happen. So she had to release a lot of the stuff that she was carrying about what she had witnessed with her mom so that she could really invest in this value as something she's moving toward and not as representing something that she is not moving away from. And here's why that's important. When you're motivated by something you don't want, that's a short-lived motivation. It's a short-lived motivation, and it's not very powerful. Because once you get to a certain point where the pain isn't so bad about the thing you don't want, you really lose your motivation to move forward, and you lose that driver. If instead, the motivation behind what you're doing is you have in your sights what you're moving towards, that's a more powerful motivator. And as you get closer to the things that you're moving towards, you're just going to find something else to move towards. You're never going to sort of shrink back. Is this making sense?
Sure. It's the avoidance goals are weak.
They are.
And short-lived.
Yeah.
Goals based on values, if you're leaning on the value, are going to have, well, I'll put it this way. If you're not engaging a powerful value, you're not going to get powerful action.
Yes, exactly.
So let's pause here for a moment and I think summarize.
Amazing. In summary, then, your values are your deepest level purpose makers. Okay, I didn't actually get that from anywhere. It's my own definition. Your values are your deepest level purpose makers. So your strongest purpose is always going to be found when you're in alignment with the things that are most important to you. And we also talked about Well, in order to know what they are and how they're working, you have to bring them from the unconscious to the conscious level. And then you can start to make really the best choices for yourself.
Values work is something that we love to do with clients when it's called for.
Exactly.
Identifying values, finding values to lean on, resolving conflicts, digging out the baggage that's barnacling on them.
Exactly.
If you would like to find out more about how to work with us, go to our website at thecatholicmidlife.com. Hit the big orange button for a consult.
We'd love to see you.
We would love to see you. It's great to be here with you, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Catholic Midlife podcast. It's great to be here with you. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite app or platform. Leave a review. That's so helpful so that others like you can find the podcast. And be sure to tell your friends. We'll see you next week.